They're doing exactly what they are supposed to do, which is when the phone rings for a big fight, especially a title fight, a main event, you say yes, and then you find out the details later. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah.
So, Nick, we got a lot of moving parts at the top of heavyweight right now. We got Ciryl Gane taking on Derrick Lewis here in Houston, August 7th. The interim title is going to be on the line. You've got Francis Ngannou, who's very unhappy, his management very unhappy with this decision to put an interim title up. And I'm not sure, this may be the quickest time in UFC history that a new champion has been crowned and then an interim title was put up. But it seems like there's a bit of bad blood on both sides between the UFC matchmakers, Dana White, and then the management that takes care of Ngannou. And from what I understand, he's kind of managed by an entire team of people. It's a crazy situation. I was not expecting this. I was expecting the Lewis-Francis rematch to get made at some point, but we'll take what we get, and I'm excited that Derrick is going to be competing for a belt.
Yeah, and at home here in Houston, it couldn't be any better if you're a Derrick Lewis fan, or you wanted to see him progress into potentially the biggest fight of his life, which would have been Francis versus Derrick 2 for the belt. But it's so funny to me because there's clearly big four, and I guess Ciryl Gane makes it big five in the heavyweight division right now, in Derrick and Francis and Stipe and Jon and now Ciryl. But admittingly, by their own, we have to go off their word, right? Francis is out; he doesn't want to fight right now. Stipe is out; he doesn't want to fight right now. Jon is out. He doesn't want to fight right now. And, the UFC is a business. They need a champion in all the weight divisions. And in my opinion, they're just moving on. The train keeps rolling. And just because I personally think it's great that they're moving on with an interim title. A lot of people get angry when that sort of stuff happens. They go, oh, well, Francis it's only been 3 months. But if he does get what he wants, which is fighting in, late September at the very earliest, we're talking about another 3 months. So now we're talking 6 months before the belt gets, contested for, which contradicts what Francis himself said is, I just want to stay active. So it's kind of strange where they asked him to be active, fight Derrick Lewis. We need you to fight him because he's the rightful #1 contender, and you've lost to him. You two kind of owe the sport a rematch in that one. And Stipe and Jon are out for right now, so we can't wait around for them. We need to get on with the division, and I just feel like the UFC is not to blame here in this situation, and it certainly isn't Ciryl Gane or Derrick Lewis's fault that these two just wound up in an interim title fight.
No, they're doing exactly what they are supposed to do, which is when the phone rings for a big fight, especially a title fight, a main event, you say yes, and then you find out the details later.
Right.
And credit to Ciryl and Derrick for doing that. In my opinion, this really all comes down to Francis wanting the Jones fight.
Yeah.
And Jon Jones, and I understand that. I'll try to, obviously for you guys that watch quite often, we know Derrick Lewis, so we're going to be a little bit biased here in our opinions. But ever since the Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight story started, Francis has been pining for that fight.
Right.
And the first step in that process was that he needed to become the champion.
Right.
Because Jon Jones doesn't really fight contender fights at this point in his career. Check that box. Francis has accomplished the first part of that mission. Now the next would be to defeat Jon Jones.
Right.
Jon Jones has come out and said, I'm not fighting in 2021.
Yeah.
I want to wait until 2022. So the UFC, obviously, they did the right thing. They put a guy who's on a 4-fight win streak, coming off of 2 KOs in Derrick Lewis, who really and truly is and by the way, has a win over Francis.
Right.
Is truly the right contender to go in there and fight for the title.
Right.
Especially since Jon has taken his own self out of the equation, at least for the time being, both financially and, just calendar-wise. He wants to continue to bulk up.
Right.
Stipe has also said he's not ready to jump back in there just yet. So that really leaves the UFC. Now, you have a great champion. You have a marketable champion, a guy who just won the belt, who you want to keep that momentum going. You want to keep that train rolling down the track, so to speak.
Right.
And to me, for Francis, he just didn't want to fight Derrick again right now. He wanted to do the Jon. Not saying that Francis is scared of Derrick or anything. I'm not going to buy into all of that, but I believe that when you lost to somebody before, and quite frankly, you were a bit, when your game is that you come straight forward and you pull the trigger and you swang and bang and you try to knock your opponents out, and you don't do that against a certain opponent like Derrick Lewis, it shows me a bit of pause and a bit of respect for the power. Yeah. And so in Francis's mind, in my opinion, he at least has some pause to take on Derrick again, because he knows if he loses that fight, which, by the way, if history tells us anything, and if history repeats itself, he will.
Right.
It'll be a different fight. It'll be a different time. They both have improved on their skills, and so who knows what will happen when that fight actually materializes. But if he were to lose again like he lost the first time, now you're talking about that mega fight with Jon Jones and that uber payday that he wants kind of being pushed by the wayside. Yeah. Possibly forever. Yeah. So I understand it from Francis's point of view, but at the same time, when you have a guy who's not fighting until next year, and and I understand Francis wanted to take some time off too and go see his family, go to Cameroon, but we're talking about 3-4 months, and you were offered July, you said no, that's too early. Offered August, you said no, that's too early. Offered September, you said no, that's too early. Then the calendar in my mind, when all of that happens, starts to be less of a factor for me, and it makes me believe, okay, it's actually the person, not the date, that you don't want.
Yeah, and I think Derrick is a tough matchup. It's a very risky fight for Francis, and he does want the big name fights at heavyweight as the champion, but getting through Derrick Lewis is very tough, as he knows personally. It's a tough night out, no matter who you are. And I think that, to be the champ, you have to take anybody that comes your direction. It shouldn't matter. That's like the one position in fighting where you shouldn't be you don't need to call people out. You shouldn't, be asking for certain opponents. If you're the best in the world, it doesn't matter who they stick in there across from you. You're going to beat them because you're the best. And Francis should kind of take that mentality. I don't think that he needs that much more time to rest or wait or procrastinate. And he certainly doesn't need to wait till 2022, because if he does that, if he would have told the UFC that his plan was to wait till Jon Jones, no matter what date that is, they would have stripped him of his actual title, and this Ciryl Gane versus Derrick Lewis would have been for the official UFC title, the undisputed. So I think the UFC is playing very fair, very above board here by saying, look, you don't want to fight right now, no problem. We don't want to make you fight. And we certainly don't want you to get into the cage with somebody that you're saying you don't want to fight, even though the scared thing is not real when you get to this level. But if you say, I don't want to fight that person, but that's the rightful number one contender, and you don't want to fight anytime soon, then they're left with no other option. But, okay, well, then we got to go with an interim title. And Ciryl Gane's coming off a really great win. He's put a great streak together, undefeated, handsome-looking guy. He's marketable. We could really build on him. And Derrick Lewis speaks for himself. He's literally one of the most polarizing.
He's the knockout king.
Right, and one of the most entertaining fighters on the entire roster, one of the most entertaining athletes in the entire world, in my opinion. And it just seems that they're doing Francis a favor by not stripping him and making this the undisputed. They're making it an interim and kind of forcing his hand. Now what they've done is it's a little bit of a chess match, right? Francis wanted Jon, but Jon was willing to wait, so it was a move by Jon that took Francis out of that equation for right now. And then the UFC goes, okay, well, if you don't want to fight Gane or Derrick right now, then what we're going to do is make that the interim title, and that kind of puts him between a rock and a hard place, because now he can't turn down anybody with an interim title. He has to fight that person no matter who it is, and it has to be within about 6 months, or they're going to strip him, and then they're going to move on with the division.
Yeah, and let's just take, emotions and names and all of that out of this and just play devil's advocate for a second and try to decide who is the rightful contender. And I think if you just take the names out and you back into what have you done for me lately, which we know this sport is very much a sport of what have you done for me lately, you've got one guy who's never lost in MMA in Ciryl Gane. He has beaten Alexander Volkov in his last fight, beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik the fight before that, knocked out a former champion and a former great in JDS prior to that. He's been very active in 2021, all wins. Right. You've got another guy who's got a win over the champion, albeit a boring fight, I understand that, but he still has, if you look at his record, he's got a win over Francis and Derrick. He's on a 4-fight win streak. The last 2 of them were KOs, top 5 guys that he's KOing. And he's somebody who's deserving. And now you look at the third person being Jon, somebody who hasn't fought in almost a year and a half, who the last 2 times he did fight, almost actually all of his fights were one weight class below what we're talking about here, light heavyweight, not heavyweight.
60-pound difference.
60-pound difference. And the last 2 times he did, and by the way, Derrick and Francis are guys who max out. This isn't like they're going to be the same size. One of them just doesn't cut weight.
Right.
Francis would be much, much bigger than Jon. And so you look at hasn't fought in almost a year and a half. The last 2 times we did see him, he looked very vulnerable. He, on a lot of people's scorecards, lost that fight to Dominic Reyes.
Right.
The Thiago Santos fight was extremely close. And so I think obviously, yes, Jon Jones is arguably the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. Yes, Jon Jones gets to do some things that other people don't do because of his track record. I'm not arguing that he doesn't. But I'm simply making a case here that really and truly, if you look at it, he's not the number 1 contender at heavyweight.
Right.
It's the winner of this Gane versus Derrick fight.
Yeah, and the only person that you could substitute one of these guys for would be Stipe.
Right.
Because of all the work Stipe's done at heavyweight and recently. So I think they've got the right 2 guys. I think that it's really important for the UFC to move forward and show that not one fighter has more power than the brand and the company of the UFC. This is a sport. It's got to move forward. And us as fans, all we want to see is great fights and experience amazing moments. Crowning a champion, the heavyweight. That's the most coveted of all the divisions, right? If you're the heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC, you are the baddest man on the planet. Period. End of story. Hard stop right there. There's no organization in MMA, and there's certainly no other sport that you could make a case for them being the baddest guy in the world.
Tim Kennedy.
Yeah, well,
And I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Well, it takes him out of unarmed combat, but of course, we're talking about the hands and the feet only. It just, for me, this is the UFC giving the fans what they want, giving 2 willing opponents and number 1 contenders what they want and what they deserve, quite frankly. And they're saving face, in my opinion, with the champ by not stripping him, giving this the undisputed, but giving this an interim title. And in my opinion, they kind of earned the right to force Francis into fighting the winner of this fight. And that's just what's going to happen. The harsh reality for Francis is his first title defense as the UFC heavyweight champion of the world is not going to be against Jon Jones. If he really wants the Jon Jones fights and he wants it to be mega, then he's got to beat Stipe or Ciryl, or Derrick or Ciryl, and see what happens next, early 2022 or maybe late 2021.
Yeah, and I don't think this is all bad for Francis, right? Because he's still the champion of the world. He's still the heavyweight champion of the world.
Right.
He's still going to be stepping into the Octagon out of the red corner next time he fights as the heavyweight champion of the world. So nothing's going to change there in that regard. It's just going to be, as you said, he's not going to get that first title defense against Jon Jones. And I think we laid out a decent enough case as to why, really and truly, Jon is as big as he is and as big as that fight is and as much as I'd love to see that, is truly not the heavyweight number 1 contender.
Yeah, and the return of Jon Jones is a big fight. Make no mistake about it. But in my opinion, now putting the interim title around one of these guys' waists, that's going to heighten the fight, that the Francis's title title defense, because now you've got champ versus champ. You've got 2 guys walking in, and we got to figure out which one of these belts is legit. And I think that will actually help with numbers as far as pay-per-view and all of that goes for the Francis fight.
Listen, the winner of this fight with Derrick and Gane versus Francis is over 1 million pay-per-view buys.
Yeah.
The winner of that versus Jon Jones potentially eclipses 2 million pay-per-view buys.
Crazy.
So all Francis has got to do is win a fight at over 1 million pay-per-view buys, and then he gets his mega payday, and he can shoot off into the stratosphere. But I think, I'm happy for Derrick, obviously. We know Derrick, and the fact that he's getting this fight is huge. It's huge for our gym. It's huge for Houston. And I'm also a fan of Gane. I mean, the guy's never lost since he's competed in MMA. So this is a great fight, and I'm really looking forward to it.
As am I.
Well, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Obviously, as we said in the beginning of the video, we're a bit biased. We're cheering for the H-Town guy, Derrick Lewis, and we're so glad he got this fight. But let us know in the comments, Do you think the UFC got this one wrong? Do you think that Francis should be given the opportunity to fight Jon first if that's what he really wants? We know there's differing opinions on this, and it's a hot topic, so we always love debating and discussing with you guys in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, a like, comment, and subscribe helps us out tremendously, and check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts. Until the next one, have a great day.
Peace.